Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Angel, are you going to the wedding? There was a voice over his shoulder. The dark-haired man in the medical uniform turned around abruptly. He didn't see that there was someone else in the office. It turned out that the head of the department had stopped by. He was worried that someone invited to the new mayor's wedding might not come. Sure, the doctor replied. Angel had worked at the main city hospital for 15 years. He was a dentist. Those patients who were afraid of the dentist were ready to endure pain, but they waited for this doctor. He was good at his job and tried to make sure that people were not afraid. He was often invited to work in private clinics, and they promised a huge salary. But Angel did not like the pompous rich men, which he would certainly have to face there. Hurry up, Juan doesn't like when people are late. He is a very serious man. You know how important it is to show your best. The head of the department reminded him and left. Juan was new in this city. He had been assigned here from the capital to put things in order. There, he was known for his anti-corruption activities and his transigence and incorruptibility. Juan was a middle-aged man about to marry for the third time. The nurses said he was a difficult man, extremely jealous and picky. These qualities helped him to get promoted, but they also prevented him from building a family life. Ambition and arrogance were all that Angel could see in him during his time in the hospital. The mayor had recently moved to the city and had come to meet the doctors to find out what was going on. He showed up at the hospital at 8 a.m. and talked to each doctor, listened to the complaints, and made notes in a notebook. That's how their meeting took place. And later, the new mayor personally asked the head of the department to invite the staff to his wedding. Employees of the Department of Culture and City Hall staff were also invited. He wanted a lavish celebration and to show everyone that he was the boss there. The junior staff was not invited. Juan only wanted to invite those who could be of use to him later on. A very striking gesture that could have been interpreted ambiguously. But the new mayor didn't care much. Someone was already secretly calling him a dictator. Angel finished working with the last patient. It was a child. At 40, Angel had no children. That was just how life turned out. He remembered family life like a nightmare. Everything was as usual. He loved one woman, married another, was married for 5 years, and divorced. Now he was single, an in-demand specialist. He didn't even think about having a family, but he always wanted to have children. A couple of years ago, Angel had even considered adoption, but it never became a reality. He got into his car and stopped at the mall on his way home. It was already getting dark outside. October had shortened the day and scattered yellow leaves everywhere. What should he buy for the mayor as a gift? Still, Angel didn't understand why he had invited so many strangers to such a personal celebration. Could it be that the wedding was just an excuse for him to show off in all his glory? Angel had bought a picture for the mayor. It had the forest, the mountains, and the river. The frame was also very beautiful. Involuntarily, he thought that his apartment lacked this kind of beauty. He had no shortage of money, so he decided he would definitely buy the same one. At home, Angel put on a shirt, pants, and tie, cleaned his shoes, took the artwork with him, and got into his comfortable, spacious, fancy car. It was going to be a long drive. The mayor apparently decided to settle here for a long time and bought a large country house. The party was taking place there. An hour later, Angel met his colleagues at the gate and headed to the celebration with them. The official part had already taken place in the afternoon, and now an imposing, mannered man and his beautiful wife in a wedding dress were sitting in the center of the table. The bustle seized him. Angel left his gift where everyone else did. The mayor nodded to him, smiled, and immediately switched to the other, more important guests. "I see why we're here," the therapist whispered in his ear. He must have no friends, but he wanted a luxury party. We're here as extras, plus we owe him a favor, you know. He invited us to his wedding. There are some people from the police department here too, a local judge, about 200 people judging by the tables. Angel nodded in agreement with his colleague. Only a lonely man with an incredibly inflated ego would dare to make his wedding into a presentation of his luxurious life. Such a mayor could hardly be trusted by the common people. He should have been more modest. Angel was sitting at one of the tables when suddenly the bride walked by. She was chatting with a bridesmaid about something. "Olivia," Angel called out to her. The girl did not turn around. He couldn't believe he'd met her here. He couldn't believe she was alive and that she was the mayor's wife. "Olivia, Olivia," he called out to her. Angel ran up to her and looked into her eyes. It was her, only a little older and 100 times more beautiful. When he'd known her, Olivia had been a student. She had bangs and brown hair. She wore simple sweaters and didn't paint her nails. An ordinary girl, a medical student. Angel was a second-year student and she was in her first year. He didn't understand why he liked her so much. When he was young, Angel was a handsome guy, and a lot of girls were hitting on him. But she was the only one he liked. Angel approached her and asked her out, and Olivia said yes. Thus began their romance. They kissed everywhere, in university classrooms, under the stairs, on the rooftops of high-rises, and in the park. They couldn't get enough of each other. It was the first time in his life that, as a boy, had experienced such strong feelings. He was ready to die for her, and she felt the same about him. It was a great mutual love. Angel's parents didn't like Olivia. She was the daughter of a simple nurse, but everyone in Angel's family was proud of their academic success. Both Angel's mother and father were highly accomplished professionals. Angel was their only son, and his parents loved him dearly. When he took Olivia into their home, she was well treated, and they were always kind to her. But as soon as the door was shut behind the girl, his mother asked in a doomed voice, "Maybe Angel should think about the daughter of her friend. She studied abroad." The relationship with Olivia lasted a long time. They decided to live together, but they never had time to move in together. They started quarreling, arguing, usually over nothing. Angel couldn't remember exactly what they had argued about, but he decided that Olivia would calm down and she would come crawling back, and Olivia must have thought the same thing. Eventually, they just broke up. Soon, Angel saw Olivia with someone else. They were walking hand in hand in the park. That day, he texted his old friend Paula and asked her out. So he started dating someone else and only learned a month later from a mutual acquaintances that the guy was Olivia's cousin. He wanted to get it all back. He went to see her, but she chased him away, saying it was too late. She couldn't forgive him for his relationship with Paula. It was a rough fight, and he never saw Olivia again. Angel married Paula a few months later. He wanted to numb the pain of breaking up with Olivia, but the marriage turned out to be a living hell because Paula was different, a stranger. She had a cold temper. A lawyer, an expert in divorce, she was always calm and reasonable. Angel, on the other hand, lacked fire, passion, and feelings. Nevertheless, his parents cherished Paula and were waiting for grandchildren. But the girl did not want to make a pause on her career. Work was the meaning of her life, and Angel felt he was no longer needed. He decided to get a divorce 5 years after the wedding. Paula only shrugged her shoulders, packed, and left. Angel heard that his ex, Olivia, had died. The news came when he and Paula had only been married for the first year. He didn't know the details. All he heard was that she passed away. Angel remembered the day he was told the news and still trembled. It was hard for him. After all, he had known Olivia's mother and often visited their home. But he did not go to the funeral. He could not force himself. His wife helped him to distract himself. They went into the woods with tents and spent several days there. As time went on, Angel accepted the fact that she was gone and that the story was left only in his memory. When he saw her at the wedding, he was speechless. He needed to understand what had happened to her and why everyone was saying she was dead. "Olivia, wait a minute," he shouted as he caught up with the mayor's bride. She turned around and looked at Angel with a questioning look. There was no hint on her face that she had ever known him. "Did you need something?" She smiled politely. Angel looked into her eyes. "It's me. Olivia, are you okay? You couldn't just forget me, or did something happen to you? Don't you remember anything?" Angel frantically searched for answers to the numerous questions. "I'm sorry, I'm not Olivia. My name is Patricia," the girl said. She turned to her friend again. Angel couldn't believe it. He walked back to the table and took a drink. Was he mistaken? No, it couldn't be. It was definitely her. He would recognize her out of thousands. Angel got up from his seat and walked toward the bride again. This time she was alone at her table. "Look, I know you're married now, but I just wanted to know what happened. I mean, everyone here said you were dead." "What?" The girl freaked out. "What the hell are you talking about?" Her groom came to her scream. "What's going on?" he asked. "I know your wife. I'm sorry, I just wanted to talk to her. Olivia, tell me you know me. You and I have been seeing each other for years." The girl shook her head and hid behind her husband, and the mayor's nostrils flared with rage. "Man, you must be really drunk. Go have fun and leave my wife alone." Angel was beginning to lose his temper too. "Olivia." "She's not Olivia. She's Patricia. You're mistaken. Calm down or I'll call security," the mayor said. "Her birthday is July 8th. She likes cats. She got straight A's in medical school and has a big mole right here." Angel, to the shock of the guests, pulled back the fabric of her dress and showed everyone the birthmark. His heart was racing in his chest. He wanted to believe that Olivia was alive. "How did he know about your birthday and about the birthmark?" The mayor frowned. I have no idea, but I never attended medical school. I have an economics degree, and I'm not Olivia. The bride answered. The guests didn't understand what was going on, but the mayor wanted to stop this circus. Guards! He shouted. Angel was dragged into the street and pushed onto the pavement. His picture went flying after him. From the corner of his eye, he saw the head of the hospital shake his head. Tomorrow, he would have a difficult conversation, but it wasn't that important anymore. He saw her, and hope entered his heart. Why had she denied everything? Could she not recognize him? Angel hadn't changed much over the years, at least not to the point where anyone would stop recognizing him. All these thoughts haunted him on the way home. The sleepy autumn city was soothing. Angel thought the mayor might have spoken to him more calmly, and Olivia herself was a bit harsh. Puzzling over the reasons, Angel parked his car, went up to his apartment, and made some tea. It's better to think about it in the morning, he said to his big cat, and went to bed with him. A year ago, Angel had been given a Maine Coon cat, and now he was his most beloved living creature. He used to always say that cats weren't his thing, but Max broke that stereotype of him. Now Angel no longer remembered how he had lived without the huge, furry beast with a vicious appetite and a tendency to scratch his chair. The next day began, as expected, in the chief's office. What the hell was that all about? He asked instead of hello. It's a long and very personal story. I haven't figured it out yet myself. The dentist did not want to talk about it. There was a line of people in pain outside the office. Angel wanted to go quickly and relieve the patients of their pain, and it was better to treat teeth than to reveal his soul to the boss. After you left, the mayor had a long talk with his wife. Do you really know her? It seems you had a fight with them yesterday. The bride stayed with the guests for a while to distract them and then left, saying she was tired. The mayor certainly didn't want his wedding to be a scandal. You have no idea what kind of a man he is. He's very powerful. They say he was exiled here because they feared he would rise too high in the capital. And with his personality, he'd make Armageddon. He's a very cruel man. He beat his first wife. He beat his second wife too. He's a very jealous man. You just set his wife up yesterday. Angel raised his eyebrows. There's a lot he didn't know about him. I'm really sure I know this woman. She was very important to me. The head of the department looked at Angel for a moment and took his glasses off his nose. It was stupid to scandalize anyway. You set me up too. Sorry, it was spontaneous. The mayor overreacted, and so did his wife. They didn't even try to figure it out. They talked right until the beginning of the workday. Angel almost ran to the office. Patients were always nervous if a doctor was late. Fortunately, there weren't too many of them today. Angel spent the day as usual. At lunchtime, he began searching online to find the mayor's wife, who she was, and where she was from. There was a lot of information. It would be stupid to show up at their doorstep, so he looked for an opportunity to meet her outside the house. He managed to find out that she worked at a local business center in a senior position. Angel quickly found her phone number and called. You can come talk to Patricia this afternoon. She just got some time free. Would 5 p.m. be convenient for you? The assistant asked. Certainly, thank you. Angel hung up and sighed. He couldn't wait to see her. The day seemed endless. Could it have been a mistake? But why Patricia? Olivia had a different middle name, too. How could she have changed her whole life? These questions kept overwhelming him. Angel was working non-stop that day so he could finish early. Fortunately, people with a toothache don't make a habit of being late. It was still light at 5 p.m. It was gloomy and windy outside. He parked his car, brushed his hair, and looked in the mirror. She'll probably kick me out, but I have proof. On the way to the business center, he stopped by his home and grabbed his vintage photo album. It had pictures of them together. I wonder what she would say to that. After getting past the security post and the receptionist, he found himself in her office. There were bright walls inside, pictures of some bridges, and a fragile girl was sitting at her desk, with her blonde hair pulled into a high ponytail. She wore a dark suit. Her fingernails were dark blue. "Good afternoon. I'm listening to you," she said and looked up. Angel sat down in a chair and handed her some pictures. "Before you chase me away, take a look. I don't know how you can deny it." The girl was confused and looked at the pictures. Her eyebrows went up. She took off her glasses and then put them back on. "Oh my God, it's me, but it's not me," she declared. "I just want to understand what happened. It's Olivia in the pictures. She was a medical student. She and I dated for a few years. Then we broke up because we were stupid. I was told she died, and I put up with it and lived a normal life until I saw you. Do you understand what is going on?" The girl was listening intently to Angel, glancing from time to time at the pictures. "I thought you were crazy or wanted something from me. You know, you shouldn't have come near me in front of Juan anyway. He's very impulsive." "I heard he used to hit women. Why did you even marry him?" the dentist said. The girl shrugged her shoulders. "He didn't hit me yet. You know, there's a lot of good in him, and everyone has past mistakes. But it doesn't really matter, right? Do you realize it's not me?" she asked. Angel crossed his arms across his chest and shook his head. "I was right yesterday about the birthmark and your birthday." "Yes, but that information is publicly available." "God, do you still think I'm crazy? That I'm stalking you? Look at the pictures. They're faded because I've been going over them a lot. I loved that woman." He was starting to lose his temper. "She was lucky to have you." She also lost her temper for a moment and was about to kick him out the door. Angel smiled. "You even get angry just like her. Olivia was very impulsive, very." The girl stood up and walked over to the filing cabinet. She threw the documents in front of the visitor's face. "Look here, this is my diploma. I graduated in economics from Capital University. I did an internship there. I've never lived in this city. I just recently came here with my fiancé. My name is Patricia, but you're right about the birthday and the birthmark." Angel looked at her and realized what could happen. "There is only one option." "What is it?" she asked tiredly. "If I knew a woman exactly like you and your birthday was on the same day, then you had a twin sister. The birthmark confirms that theory too." Patricia shook her head. "I'm not adopted. I have a mom and a dad." My mom works for the city government. Dad is an interpreter. But there are no other options anyway. Patricia grinned. I'm sorry, I have to work. You surprised me, but it's just a coincidence. The girl in the picture just looks like me. The birthdays are the same. It happens because there are only 365 days in a year, and a lot more people. I'm sorry, but I'm not your ex-girlfriend. I understand you want me to be, and that would mean she's alive. But that's not the case. I'm sorry, you see, it's all written here. She showed him her papers again. Angel pursed his lips and nodded. Patricia was silent, waiting for this to be over. Angel shook his head and just walked out. On his way home, he stopped at a local bar. He went there regularly, every Saturday. It had a cozy atmosphere, good music, and good drinks. Sometimes local musicians performed there. They were pretty good at doing covers of famous hits. Angel sat there for over an hour. He reflected on the fact that he would probably never forget Olivia. First love is never forgotten. But how rarely does it grow into something more? The bartender poured him another shot of whiskey, and he felt better. Patricia had made a bad impression on him. Only now did he realize that a person couldn't change that much. Olivia was simple, sympathetic, and kind. She would never wear a tight suit or speak so carelessly to anyone. She had a bad temper, but she was the kindest person in the world. He realized he missed her, and there was nothing he could do. She was gone. He should have gone to her funeral. It would have been easier for him now. He wouldn't be looking for phantom hopes. At home, hugging the cat, Angel firmly decided that he would forget everything that had happened, like a nightmare. It was just a false hope that painfully scratched his gut, but it was over now. Olivia was gone, and he should visit her grave. Morning came suddenly, as if the night had never happened. He was hungover, but fortunately, he didn't have to go to work. Angel spent the day looking for a hobby. He couldn't dare enroll into skydiving school or go to boxing. He needed to make a change in his life, to bring something into it that could fill the void inside. If it weren't for the damn wedding, he'd still be living the life he'd had before, dating 2 nurses at the same time. Ursula, damn it, I forgot to call her. With all these events, Angel lost his personal life. He invited a girl home for the evening. Raquel was supposed to come over a day later. They were 2 nurses from different wards. They did not communicate with each other. He told the girls right away that he was not ready for a serious relationship, but could only offer fun together and intimacy. But it was not easy to resist the handsome dentist. He changed his girlfriends from time to time. Some of them began to insist on something more and left without getting what they wanted. Others would find more reliable partners and break off relationships to build a family. The next morning, Angel woke up in the arms of a pretty, swarthy girl. She was so petite, sweet, and unpredictable that Angel sometimes wondered how she was still single. He liked her, but his heartbeat was steady when she was around. "Good morning. Shall I make breakfast?" she asked with half-asleep eyes open. "Morning. No, I have cookies, bread, and butter. I like to have a simple breakfast." They ate. She looked good in his stretchy t-shirt. During breakfast and later, when Angel drove her to work, he looked at her and thought something was wrong with him. He'd been alone for a long time, and she was a beautiful young woman who couldn't wait to be with him. But as soon as he imagined that she would be around all the time, that she would wake up next to him every day, a red button inside him would light up. He wasn't ready for a serious relationship, or he just hadn't met the one and only yet. The workday finally helped him come to his senses. He decided he was going to sign up for boxing. He had been interested in parachuting for a long time. Back in the years when he was dating Olivia, they wanted to enroll in skydiving school together, but it didn't work out. No need to touch those wounds. It was a half an hour to the end of the work shift. Next, he called out, hoping the hallway would be empty, but he heard the thump of heels on the tiles. It was Patricia, the new mayor's wife. "Trouble with your teeth? Come in." He smiled. For a second, he actually thought she might have come to him because of a toothache. But then, he thought it was unlikely that such a man's wife would wait in line to visit a free doctor in a municipal hospital. "Good afternoon. Angel, you are not easy to find. You didn't leave any information about yourself, and I can't ask my husband. You know what kind of person he is. Fortunately, my secretary wrote down your name." She took a seat in the patient's chair. Seeing her, Angel felt that everything inside him was turning upside down again. His old mental wound had just crusted over and was about to heal, but she had cracked it open. Just when he had disinfected his heart wound with liquor at the bar, and Ursula had helped anesthetize it, everything went to hell. "I couldn't help thinking about everything you said. I was at my mom's yesterday. I thought you should know that." Angel frowned. Patricia now seemed nervous and confused. And where had all her gloss and pathos gone? "What should I know?" asked the handsome, tall, brunette man in a white uniform. "You know, I'm scared to death of doctors, and the sight of your chair makes me want to faint. Let's talk in the cafe, okay?" Angel nodded and began to change clothes. There were no more patients in the hallway. They came to the cafe near the hospital. Patricia ordered a mint tea, and Angel could hardly keep from ordering a whiskey. But he pulled himself together and only ordered a black coffee. "If you don't start talking, I'll die of curiosity," Angel said very seriously. The girl smiled. Today, she had a simple ponytail on the back of her head. She looked good with her blonde hair. Her makeup was simple but neat. Olivia had bangs, was brunette, and had no makeup. He kept comparing them in his head. "I'm sorry, I was at my mother's and asked her straight out about everything. I told her there was a girl who looked a lot like me, and I showed her the picture. You dropped it the day you were in my office." Patricia handed him a picture of him hugging Olivia, and Olivia laughed. He remembered the day they took that picture. They had a terrible fight that day, and then they made up very passionately. "And what did your mother say?" he asked without taking his eyes off the picture. "She said she gave birth to 2 girls. I had a twin sister, but she disappeared. It was a scandalous incident. The whole city was discussing it. There was an accident at the maternity hospital at the time. After a heavy downpour, the roof collapsed in one of the rooms. No one was hurt, but all mothers and children were evacuated. My mother had a difficult labor, and the children were moved to another building without her. She herself needed rest and treatment. Only when everyone was moved did the doctors realize that my little sister was missing. At that time, many people were suspected of her disappearance. The police checked everyone, but they couldn't find the person who did that. My mother thought the baby had died in the accident, but they just didn't mention it so they wouldn't prosecute. After all, somebody had to be responsible for something like that. So she decided she just hadn't been told, and she accepted it and tried to never think about it again. Angel listened to her and realized he was now talking to Olivia's sister. Olivia always said she wished she had a sister. The girl's lips trembled and tears rolled down her cheeks. Now when I know I had a sister, I never got to know her. It makes me sick. Mom said she wanted to visit her grave. I could get the detectives involved, but Juan wouldn't let me. I didn't tell him anything at all. After the wedding, he got kind of gloomy. He always suspects me. By the way, it's your fault he's jealous. He says you couldn't just find out about the birthmark. Maybe you should have told him you had a sister and that I wasn't crazy and hitting on you at the wedding, Angel asked ironically. For a second, anger flashed in Patricia's eyes. You know, I could have said nothing to you. It's just that you accuse me of your husband being an unstable tyrant, both at work, where it may still be considered acceptable, and in his family. You married him. You should at least ask about what happened to his 2 ex-wives. Patricia jumped up from her seat. You know what? His ex-wives were annoying us with calls. They both wanted to go back to Juan, despite his personality. He's a real man, unlike others. Courage is a rare quality these days. Men have all grown beards, but you're still fragile girls on the inside. I've been looking for a man who's stronger than me, and I found him. Whoa, calm down. Angel interrupted her. You're just as hot-tempered as your sister. She was the same, and you know I liked that about her. And they say that twins are not alike in character. Patricia smiled. Tell me about her. They talked for a couple of hours. Then Patricia got a call from her tyrant husband that she had to leave. They arranged to meet in a day and visit Olivia's mother. Angel knew where she had worked before and hoped to find her himself. Before meeting Patricia, Angel called the maternity hospital on the outskirts of the city where Olivia's mother, Laura, used to work as a nurse. He asked to get her on the phone, and when he heard her voice, he hung up. It was not easy for him. His heart was pounding in his chest with excitement. It was as if he was tearing apart an old wound inside him. Maybe it would be good for him to say goodbye to the past once and for all. After all, he never said one last time he loved her. He was sorry. He chickened out and didn't go to the funeral. Maybe that's why he didn't realize she was gone. To him, she just disappeared. When he saw Patricia, he knew it couldn't be Olivia. But there was still hope in his heart, and that was because for him, their story ended with ellipses, and he needed to finish it, to face his fear and say goodbye to the past. The weather was disgusting, with cold rain pouring down and the wind blowing the drops in all directions. It was the worst weather this year. Angel finished his last appointment and left the hospital. There, she was already waiting for him. She was wearing a purple raincoat and heeled boots. Her hair was neatly pulled together at the top of her head. Why didn't you wear a hat? It's cold, he asked. Olivia always wore hats. Stupid, unfashionable, funny hats, and they all looked awful on her. I don't wear hats, she smiled. At that moment, a beautiful, dark-haired girl in a light jacket appeared behind her. She called out to Angel, and he turned around. Ursula, hello, he said. The girl was clearly jealous. Patricia stood silent. Are you busy today? She asked slyly. A little. I have some work to do, but I will be free tonight. Ursula turned a disgruntled look from Angel to Patricia and back. No, not tonight, honey. She smiled charmingly, walked over to Angel, got on her toes, and kissed him on the lips. After that, she looked into his eyes and left without saying goodbye. I think you just got tagged, Patricia said as soon as Ursula got far enough away. They got into his car and drove to the outskirts of the city where the maternity hospital was located. I found out she still works there. Laura is a kind woman. Don't frighten her right away. Don't accuse her. You know she probably stole the baby, right? She works as a nurse in a maternity hospital. I'm pretty sure she worked at the Metropolitan Maternity Hospital where I was born. She stole my sister, broke up the family, and separated the twins. Angel slammed on the brakes sharply. If that's the way you feel, I won't even take you there, he said and crossed his arms. The car stopped and stood in the middle of the roadway. Other cars honked their horns to avoid the stubborn man. I can find her without you. You know that, don't you? Of course I do. Tell your husband the whole story. I think his ambition won't play in your favor. Patricia didn't know why she was afraid to tell him. Maybe she was really afraid, or maybe she was just looking for a meeting with Angel. He was the kind of man women remembered, the kind of man who would get stuck in their hearts. Let's go. I promise not to eat her alive. She pursed her lips grudgingly, and he noticed it, and the association set him back to Olivia again. She was doing exactly the same thing. The car stopped in front of the maternity hospital. Angel looked at his watch. Soon, the shift would be over and she'd be out. Let's just wait. The awkward silence was interrupted by Patricia. Who was that girl? For some reason, I thought you were single. I am. We're in a non-serious, casual relationship. And believe me, she knows that. It's just not all girls were made for that kind of relationship, and not all men were made for marriage. I think you are talking about yourself, Patricia said ironically. So what makes you think that you're not made for marriage? Maybe you just married the wrong person. Marrying the wrong person can leave a negative imprint. Actually, I'm talking about your husband. Patricia wanted to object and was just about to boil over from his last words when suddenly people started coming out of the building. There she is, let's go, Angel commanded, not giving her a chance to tease. They walked quickly toward her, and soon the aged woman saw the tall, handsome Angel in front of her. The wind was fluttering his hair. He didn't even have time to button up. Patricia stayed behind. Hello, Laura, he said. Everything inside him broke off. He'd been so afraid of this encounter. Angel, what are you doing here? She was surprised. I came to see you. I wanted to talk about Olivia. The woman was surprised. Well, she said with a shrug. Then her gaze fell on his companion. She was looking at Patricia and seemed about to faint. This is my friend, Patricia, he said. Everyone froze, afraid to say anything. Laura was as pale as a sheet. She walked over to the girl and touched her face. Oh my God, Olivia! My name is Patricia, the girl said. The woman lowered her eyes. She realized everything and cried. Laura, I reacted the same way when I saw her. At first, I thought it was Olivia. I wasn't at the funeral, and I wanted to believe that Olivia was alive. The woman was crying and looking at Patricia. Let's go somewhere and talk, okay? She asked, and Laura cried even harder. Angel understood. Patricia's voice was exactly the same as Olivia's. 10 minutes later, they entered the apartment where Olivia used to live. From the walls, Olivia's pictures with a black corner were staring at Patricia. It was creepy, and she started to tremble on the inside. Patricia showed no weakness, but she was very vulnerable, and her nervous system had been crippled since childhood. Laura made tea. A single dim light bulb lit the kitchen. It hadn't been renovated since Angel had come here to see Olivia. I took her from those people, from your parents. I remember your mother coming to the maternity hospital in tears. Your daddy was a tyrant. He beat her even when she was pregnant. She had abrasions and bruises on her arms and legs. She cried that she wanted to leave him, but now she certainly couldn't. She gave birth, and the doctor told her she couldn't have any more children. She had some kind of congenital abnormality, and pregnancy, especially with twins, was a risk. She told the nurses that he insisted on having a child. He wanted an heir son. When he found out that there was going to be 2 daughters, he stopped talking to her. She had already given birth to you, and he came to visit, and I heard them talking. Your mother told him she couldn't give birth anymore, and he started accusing her of not being a woman, that he didn't need her with 2 girls. He promised to kick her out of the house, and that was a big scandal. Your mother cried so much that she had to be transferred back to the ICU. The doctors wouldn't let your father in the hospital. Angel listened to this and couldn't believe it. You didn't tell me you had such a father, he said. So what? Patricia shrugged her shoulders. So you choose the same kind of husband. That's strange. You know, Laura, Patricia has exactly the same husband. A tyrant and a jealous man who beats women. Angel went off topic and switched to Patricia's personality. She was embarrassed. Maybe you can lecture me later, free-spirited lover, she mocked. Laura sighed intermittently and continued the story. 3 mugs of hot tea were waiting on the table, but no one took a sip. Everyone was so tense. I took Olivia away when I heard your mother's words. She said she wanted to give up one of the girls for adoption, just like that. I don't know if she would have taken that step or not, but she was asking for the doctor how to do it. And then there was that terrible accident. I grabbed the baby girl and left with her through the garden. It was dark, no one saw me, and there were no cameras at the time. I took the little girl home to my mother and told her everything. I couldn't have children, and she supported me. Then your father got mad and started looking for the baby, and I knew I had to leave. Mom sold her apartment in the capital, and we were able to buy this one and pay a lot of money to get the papers for Olivia. It was as if she was my biological baby. It all worked out, and I was sure I had saved a girl from a life with a horrible person or from an orphanage. I would have taken you too, but I was afraid. Angel looked at Patricia. He expected her to start yelling, but she was crying. She is still living with him now. He's rich and can do anything, but he couldn't track you down. He beat my mother and me, and that's the way it's always been. We were afraid of him. I was a straight-A student, but not because I wanted to or because I was smart. I was afraid he would punish me. He beat me during my whole childhood. He was a terrible man. You're right, but you didn't just steal his child. You robbed me of my sister and took my mother's child. And I don't even know how to feel about that now. Patricia said this through her tears and cried. Angel had not expected this. He found himself in the company of two crying women and didn't know what to do. He wanted to cry himself, but he knew that he would be embarrassed in front of Patricia. Laura and Patricia embraced and cried for a long time, while Angel sat beside them dying of embarrassment and sipping tea. Eventually, he burned his tongue with the tea and cried out loudly, and it ruined the whole atmosphere. They both looked at him, and he froze with the mug near his lips. "I'm sorry," he said embarrassingly. Patricia smiled. Laura smiled too and wiped away her tears. "Why didn't you come to her funeral?" she asked. "I was scared. I didn't want to see her like that." "If you had come, it would have been different. She gave birth to your baby. I was sure I could adopt her baby, but the local government wouldn't let me. They said the wages were small and that the apartment was not in my ownership. It still belonged to my mother at the time, so I started registering it in my name. And when I reapplied, the child had already been adopted. You have a son. Olivia didn't want to tell you. She said you already had another woman." Angel grabbed his head, trying to comprehend everything he had just heard. "A child. I had a right to know. Where is he now? Why didn't you come to me when they took him away?" He went back and forth. The meeting took a turn that no one was prepared for. Angel started asking Olivia's mother about the baby. It turned out that Olivia had been pregnant when they broke up. At first, she did not know, but when she found him with another woman, she decided to keep the pregnancy a secret. She gave birth to the baby and then got into an accident. The baby was also in the car, but he didn't have a scratch on him. The driver survived, and Olivia covered the boy with herself and saved his life. She didn't even make it to the ambulance. Angel didn't know that, and the details were eating his mind. Angel was several weeks old. She took a cab to the pediatric outpatient clinic with him, and they never gave him back to me. The child welfare authorities took him away. I think it's karma. I stole someone else's baby, and now I've had mine stolen, taken away. Maybe some childless rich guy paid to take my Angel. She gave him my name. There were tears in Angel's eyes. Laura nodded. They sat and drank tea for a long time. Then Patricia's phone rang and she hurried away. Now they learned that they had a relative. He was 9 years old. His name was Angel. He was Patricia's nephew and Angel's son. "What are you going to do?" he asked her when he stopped the car near the business center. That's where she'd already parked in the morning. "I don't know. Let's go to her grave tomorrow. I'll see what I can do and see if I can get some information myself." "Okay." Angel looked at Patricia. She was as anxious as he was. He felt like hugging her in some old habit. That's what he always did before when he saw a worried look on Olivia's face. She also hesitated a little and looked at him in a different way. In the evening, he couldn't calm down. He's a father. Is that even possible? He desperately wanted to go to his son, but he had to wait. In the morning, Angel went to work, and there, during breaks, he called the local child welfare agencies and tried to find out information about his son. As is often the case, one person referred to another. No one knew anything, had no information, and wasn't going to help him. By evening, exhausted, he met Patricia and they drove to the local cemetery. Walking along the wet path, they held hands. It was scary and exciting. When Angel saw her grave, his legs became weak. From the tombstone, Patricia's copy was looking at her, only with dark hair. They stood there for a long time, and each of them spoke to Olivia in their thoughts. Before they knew it, they were embracing each other. Angel pulled her against him, and she clung to his arm. It was cold and wet, and they were both crying. Angel thought that he hadn't experienced it when she was buried, and he had to experience it now. There was no way to escape reality anyway. "She's gone. Come on, let's go," Patricia said, putting 2 red roses on the ground. They walked back through the cemetery, wiping the tears from their faces. The car roared and took them to the cafe in the city center in 10 minutes. They decided to warm up and have coffee. It was dark and noisy inside, but they sat there without smiling, each going through their grief. "I never thought it would be like this," Patricia said. "Neither did I. And if someone had told me that I would sit and talk to Olivia's twin sister like this, having just visited her grave, I wouldn't have believed it. Life isn't just unpredictable, it just seems to mock." Patricia nodded, warming her hands on her warm mug. "I have to get home," she said. "Will you tell him?" There was a pause. "I don't know." They left the cafe. Angel didn't know what happened to him. He took Patricia's hand and asked the question that had been tormenting him for a long time. "Why are you with him? Are you crazy? Your father beat your mother and you found someone just like him. God, why?" She was confused and shrugged her shoulders. "I don't know. I guess all girls look for men who look like their fathers." "You're afraid to tell him that you have a twin sister, you have a nephew. Is that the life you want? Do you really need that adrenaline? Do you need that fear? Do you want to get beaten up?" Angel went wild. He held her hands and almost screamed. Tears spurted from her eyes. "I don't know. Stop it." Patricia pushed him away, and without expecting it, he hugged her and pulled her against him so tightly that she wouldn't break free. He didn't understand why he did it, and she didn't understand why she didn't want him to let her go. She warmed in his arms and calmed down. He let her go and looked into her eyes. She wasn't wearing high heels today and barely reached up to his chin. "You put your arms around me, but you see her in front of you," she said resentfully and walked away. Angel got in the car and grabbed his head. He realized that this was how they always fought with Olivia. She was probably right. He saw Olivia in front of him and his feelings reignited. His subconscious refused to understand that this was another person. Angel arrived home in total confusion. He fed the cat, petted him, and collapsed in front of the TV to some horror movie. At night, he had nightmares. He woke up in a cold sweat, not really remembering what he had seen. Angel had some tea, talked to the cat, and then sat back down on the couch in front of the TV. This time, he decided to watch a good old-fashioned comedy. This helped him to sleep until morning. The day rewarded Angel with a headache and a dozen screaming patients. Yes, you're in pain now, and it will hurt and stop. And I'm hurting now, and will always be hurting because I saw Olivia's grave yesterday. And I think I really like her sister. But is anything possible between us? I mean, she's married, and she thinks I only see Olivia in her. What if she's right? His thoughts were endless. Usually, he talked to his patients and distracted them, but today, he needed someone to distract him. The problem was, also, that he didn't know if Patricia would call him. Maybe he had hurt her feelings yesterday. But she called, making an appointment at the same cafe. Angel arrived and saw her at the table. He sat across from her and looked at her guiltily. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's okay," she shrugged. He no longer saw that cold businesswoman in front of him. She had become more human with him, simple and kind. He realized that her coldness was only a mask. Inside, she was very different. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I found my nephew. I hired the detective. I didn't tell my husband. It's his employee, but I asked him not to say anything to Juan. He found Angel in a few hours. He's still at the orphanage. They didn't let a grief-stricken nurse adopt him, just because she didn't have her own apartment. Then he was moved to another orphanage. They have lost some papers and said to Laura they couldn't find him in the database. So, most likely, someone adopted him. But Angel had a note that he had relatives who could adopt him. Such children are rarely adopted. The foster parents want to make sure that no one will come and take the child away from them. So we can take him. But who will take him? You or me?" Angel smiled. "That's terrific news. Let's go there right now. I'll make arrangements and they'll let us in. I'll take him. You can't. You have a tyrant husband." Patricia shrugged her shoulders. "But we are wealthier. My husband is a rich man, and I can't have children. We can't. We tried, but to no avail. I guess it's because of me. Juan got examined and said there was nothing wrong with him. What if we adopted him and you can come to visit?" Angel took her hand. "That's my son. Patricia, come on. I'm not giving him up to anyone. You can visit him whenever you want, and your husband won't even know anything about this. You don't have to tell him if you're afraid, although I don't understand what you're afraid of." Suddenly, Juan came through the door of the cafe. He saw that they were holding hands and walked towards them. "Juan!" Patricia got up from her seat. "You thought Santos wouldn't tell me. I found out everything about your meetings. You're such a bitch," he said and slapped Patricia on the face as hard as he could. Angel jumped up and punched Juan back. A fight broke out. Patricia screamed, begging them to stop, but Juan was out of control. He punched and kicked Angel around the cafe, then continued outside. The waiters tried to stop him, but jealousy clouded his eyes. Juan stopped only when a policeman ran up to him. He came to his senses and slipped money to the waiter to make amends. Patricia sat beside Angel, trying to bring him to his senses. "What have you done?" she cried. "So, do you love him? Your sister's fiancé, whom he left with the baby, and now you go to see him every day? I found out everything." "It's not like that," she cried. One of the visitors called an ambulance. Patricia and Angel were taken away. "Are you going to file a police report?" the female doctor asked. "No, he's a very powerful man. That doesn't make any sense." Angel opened his eyes the next day. She was sitting in the room. He smiled and realized that it hurt to smile. "Hi." "I thought I was going to have to visit another grave." "You have a good sense of humor," he said, trying to get up. Patricia laid him back down. "You have a concussion. You've been unconscious for a long time. This is your hospital. I asked the doctors to take you here." "What did I miss?" he asked. Patricia shrugged her shoulders. "I got a call from my father last night. Someone had videotaped Juan beating me and then you. He said he wouldn't just leave it like that. Juan ended up going to jail this morning. Yes, he's very powerful, but so is my father. He works with the top politicians. He's a tyrant, but he loves me. My mother told him everything, and he's coming today. So I'm going to pick him up at the airport soon. I think we'll visit you again." Patricia was about to get up and leave. She looked at her watch and realized she was running late. Today, her blonde hair was loose. She used it to cover a bruise that no foundation could cover. "I'm not going to give you the baby. I'm the father. I have the first right of adoption, and I have a good job and a big apartment. Angel is my son and will live with me," he said in a serious tone. Patricia sighed. "I would never take him away from you. Yesterday I just suggested it. I didn't know how you'd feel about it, and I had no intention of depriving you of your son." She was about to leave when he called out to her again. "Will you divorce him?" "Yes, I think so." Patricia left and Angel was alone in the room. In the afternoon, almost everyone he knew came to see him. Ursula was the last one to stop by. She kissed him, stroked his hair, and asked who the woman was. "It was Patricia. I think I'm in love with her," he said. It was a revelation Angel hadn't expected from himself. Ursula shrugged her shoulders. "I knew it that night. I certainly wish you good luck. But if you happen to get lonely, call me." She smiled slyly at him, winked, and left. This way of breaking up was perfect. No tears, no tantrums. Angel once again thought that Ursula was gold and he didn't deserve her. But the reason was different. He really liked Patricia. He missed her. Although she had only recently been here. She came in the next morning. Her father entered the room with her. He was a fat, serious man wearing an expensive suit, a hunched nose and dark eyes that stared straight into his soul. After meeting him for the first time, Patricia's father said he was willing to help with the adoption, and Angel agreed. It's too bad if the child has to wait until he's discharged from the hospital and while he collects a bunch of papers. "My people are already working on it," he said. "Thank you. Thank you for reaching out to Patricia. If it hadn't been for your chance encounter, we would have never have known the fate of the other daughter. I had a bad temper back then and caused a lot of trouble. But when my child was stolen, I wasn't myself. We went to her grave yesterday. You know, I'm not going to punish that woman. God is her judge. What's done is done, but I'd like to know how Olivia lived, what she was like. You should come and see us, and of course, I want to meet my grandson." "Of course, "No problem," Angel answered. When Patricia's father left the room, it was just the two of them. Angel took her hand. He didn't say anything to her, just held her hand and looked into her eyes. "You're looking at me now, but you see her," she said bitterly. "You're wrong. I look at you, I see how different you are. You're more mysterious, you have more devils in you, more things I want to know." Patricia smiled. "And you have a lot of painkillers in you." "I want to be with you, but your father said you would leave in the morning. I can't live without you." Patricia looked at him. He was serious. "I want to stay away from Juan. He was released today and dismissed. You know, he asked me to stay." "Oh, so now we don't have a mayor again. It's like a curse." "I need to leave." "You need to stay. We'll take him together and raise him. You're genetically identical to his mother. I don't think I dare suggest that to anyone else. I've been single for a very long time, but I'm willing to change it all for you." Patricia leaned over and kissed his forehead. "I'll think about what you said," she said. The next day, she went to the capital with her father. Angel called her every day and begged her to come back, and she arrived the day he was supposed to take his son home. The boy turned out to be an exact copy of Olivia, and therefore of Patricia. The two of them brought him home and told him the whole story from beginning to end. "And why didn't you live with Angel?" he asked. He was a clever and empathetic boy. He felt uncomfortable calling him father. He needed time to get used to it. "I'm not divorced yet, and your dad likes to live alone. I don't want to disturb him." "That's not true. I want you to stay." He intervened from the bedroom, preparing a room for Angel Jr. "Patricia, if you're an exact copy of my mother, I'd like to see you all the time, every day. I think that's what Mom would have wanted." Patricia had nothing to say to that. She hugged her nephew 100th time that day. It was a victory. Patricia called her father and told him she wanted to be here with her nephew. Soon, Patricia's parents came to visit, and Laura visited him almost every day. It was very strange when they came together. Patricia's mother and the woman who had stolen her child. However, by having a heart-to-heart talk, they were able to understand each other. Now their lives revolved around the 9-year-old Angel. He was a real troublemaker. He did not study well, but that was because he was lazy. He wanted to do sports, and Angel signed him up for boxing. He was going to sign up for boxing himself, but now he had enough to worry about, and he had to give up the idea of skydiving. When you're the only parent, you have no right to risk your life. Everyone had left. Patricia saw her parents off and then told them she would probably stay here. Here was her job at the business center and her nephew who needed her, and also here was Angel, his sister's one and only love. There was obviously something special about him because Patricia had fallen in love with him too. Only she was afraid that he would see Olivia in her eyes. When a month passed after filing the divorce, Patricia and Juan met to sign the papers. Patricia agreed to sign a waiver for any maternal claims. "You know, I'm kind of glad it worked out that way. You're not right for me," he told her. Patricia shrugged her shoulders. "I didn't know you were so unstable." "You drove me into it. You made me get into a fight and lose my job. I have to start all over again. Besides, you're childless. You are an inferior woman. I don't know how I could have married you. Both of my mistresses were against it from the beginning." Patricia grinned. "You change wives, but your mistresses are constant." "There are women who don't need a ring on their finger to be with me." "There are men who don't raise their hand to a woman. Goodbye." She turned and walked away, giving him one last cold look. She walked out the door, and Juan broke the pen with which she had signed the divorce papers. Angel and Patricia were soon married. They had a real family. Angel Jr. took his father's last name and his middle name. He originally had other identities. Olivia gave him Angel's name but decided to keep her last name. Apparently, she was angry with Angel for not having him around. Soon after the wedding, Patricia got pregnant. She had a beautiful baby girl. Patricia's parents asked to name her Anna. That was the name they wanted to give her sister before she was stolen. Laura hinted that it would be a good idea to name their daughter Olivia, but Patricia gave her a completely different name, Augustina. "I want her to be a winner. May she have a strong character and a destiny unlike me or my sister." Angel smiled and hugged his wife. "What's wrong with your destiny? Are you not happy?" "I am happy, but I have lived my whole life without knowing my sister. Besides, I was used to living with a tyrant. After my bossy father, I found a husband like him, and he almost killed you. You know, I didn't tell you, but I was so frightened for you that day that my hands were shaking, and I wasn't thinking straight. I almost fainted. I thought he'd killed you, and then I felt you breathing, and then I finally admitted to myself that I was in love with you." Angel hugged her even tighter and kissed her. "You are the most amazing woman in the whole world. I think that all my life decisions led me to you. I guess we were meant to be together from the beginning." They stood looking at little Augustina, and Angel stood next to them, smiling happily.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.